Dirty 30.
Dirty 30.
Watch out! Get out of my way! Get out! Go back! Go back! Go back!
30. Dirty 30.
Dirty 30.
Hey! Come back! You'll be killed! You'll be killed!
Dirty 30.
Hello and welcome to day 2 of free agency. Heat in that call, Dan Hanzus with Marc Sessler and Conor Orr, back-to-back days. Yeah, dirty 30. Unbelievable, Conor. You could feel the energy just in the intro.
Anytime you can get a man screaming, "You'll be killed," that's how you want to start your day.
Do you know there's... You know that old thing, like, if you know, you know? This is the smallest sliver, if you know, possible. I grew up, me and my cousin Matt, just grew up watching the 1962 Toho Films classic, King Kong versus Godzilla. And that's a scene from that film where we always just got a kick out of this random dude screaming in Hokkaido at a couple running towards Godzilla. You'll be killed! You'll be killed!
I mean, it seems like fair advice from the man to the
But they
couple.
weren't killed.
Well,
How about that? See, that's the human
at that.
spirit triumphing once more.
yes.
All right. Although it was the failures of the human spirit that created Godzilla. Think about that.
I think we just wrapped the episode at that point. We've given everyone a lot to chew on there.
A physical manifestation of the atomic age, Marc Sessler. That's actually you. That's how I would describe you. Welcome. Here we go, day 2. I have to say, by the way, and thank you to everybody in the live chat right now, and we're going to have a lot of fun for the next 30 minutes. In fact, start the clock, Justin, on this Dirty 30. Can we be real about this, Sessdog, that we love covering
Dirty
stains,
30.
but we need a little bit more clarity on the legal tampering period, which is such a weird phrase in general. And the fact that 75% of the free agency is done before free agency officially kicks off tomorrow. How about we just drop legal tampering period and Monday is the start of free agency and just cut out the middleman? Because I think, quite frankly, it just muddles the message.
Yeah, like for all of us that talk about this, and if you think about, like, I think of Conor when you were like a hardcore beat writer for like it's like this phrase, it fit very well about 8 years ago. It made sense. In fact, it was like a new kind of thing where it's like, let's be real about what's actually happening now. Things have become so truncated and so quick that free agency feels essentially over in terms of Q rating and names in about 30 hours. And so we've got to update the phrasing.
I remember one off season, I think it was like my third off season on the Jets beat, and you start to see how the sausage is made, and it's like, okay, well, I need to be the first guy on Twitter to break some of this news. And so you spend all off season, like I'm talking, I was late for Christmas Eve mass talking to an agent about his back surgery, to try to get in with this guy to see if I could get, some third string fullback and all this news and stuff. And you're going to the combine and you're staying out all night. And then it was 2012, I think it was one of the first years of like the legal tampering period. And then it literally 4:01 p.m. Adam Schefter just tweeted out 99 transactions in a matter of a second. And then you're just like, well, fuck me. There was like every agent during that time was like, yeah, I promise I'll call you. It was all just loaded into his tweet deck for like 3 weeks. And then you're just like, fuck it. Fuck this whole thing.
That's frustrating. It also reminds me, and I love it, Conor, you are self-proclaimed. You were a madman in your mid-20s, a very different man pre-TNC. And I think about, speaking of King Kong versus Godzilla, like Conor Orr versus Manish Mehta on the New York Jets beat. Like two just absolute maniacs squaring off in the center of Tokyo, only instead of Tokyo, it's suburban New Jersey.
I never had I never had the news breaking prowess that he did at all. I mean, I was very young at that point, and he was on the beat for a while, but that didn't stop me from like. And I think about it now, in the Jets facility, your office is these little closet-sized cubicles, and then we all had doors on them.
Sounds
and
nice.
like I would get beat on a story, and I would like punch the wall, and like And once at my apartment, this is the funniest like free agency story ever. So at the combine, one of the Jets coaches tells me, hey, we're going after these 2 free agents. So I know that to be true, right? But I got to confirm it, right? You got to get it, you got to get other people on this because, a coach might want somebody, but you don't know if the head coach wants them or you don't want to know if the GM wants them, right? So I'm working to confirm it. All of a sudden, Manish drops it and beats me to it. I was like, this is my one hot scoop. And I had a full suitcase next to me. And I was living in like a really small apartment in Montclair. And then I did like the Magnus Samuelson, like turnaround hammer throw. And I threw the full suitcase through the wall of the apartment and it went straight through like into the bathroom. And so I had to patch like a hole that was like the size of like a large dog. And I'm glad I don't have to do that anymore.
Like maybe on a leap year, Mark, we get that Conor for 1 year every 4 years or something.
I think we just need to. You get certain things into the bloodstream, and probably we could produce it. I will.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing. There's a ton of like. Also, if you get leap year Conor, you're going to get that maniac throwing suitcases through walls. You're going to get a hard drinker out on the town just for like maybe a year is too much. Give us 1 month.
I think even a fortnight would be great. I will say one thing. I've mentioned this. I went on that infamous trip where like Rex Ryan. I was with Rex Ryan overseas, and I did say to him, I said, have you ever, do you know Conor Orr? I said, I work with him, and I believe he covered the Jets. He's like, I know Conor. That was the comment. Like, we didn't have any further conversation. You left an imprint.
Apparently. I know Conor. All right, let's get into it. Oh, this is a good one. Shout out to Kelly Hoban. Change legal tampering period to consensual finagling. I think the goal here is to eliminate that phraseology entirely and just make it free agency. But if we were going to change legal tampering, consensual finagling is pretty good. Pretty good.
I approve.
All right. Let's get caught up to date. Oh, Dan Partilli on the live chat. Again, thank you to everybody on the live chat here. Free agency something is out of control. There are 300 plus of us. We all like the video for our Heed, Lords, and Gravy. I feel like I hit all the wrong points of emphasis on that because I have no idea what I just read. Let me try again.
Dan,
there are 300 plus of us. Can we all like the video for our Heed? Lords and still not for me.
So Dan, to your
this is a great shout out, Dan. Here. Thank you. Everyone press like if you're watching this.
Oh, sure. Good.
I appreciate what Dan said. I think we could have gone down a different road grammatically with that particular message, but that's okay.
And while we're here, hashtag 48.4 subscribers on the YouTube. We're almost at 20,000. So please bang that subscribe button on Heed the Call on YouTube and get us where we need to be. All right, let's get into it. Enough finagling. Here's where we stand as of 12:18 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday. Free agency is already starting to thin out significantly after a crazy Sunday, Monday. Can you throw up that Leviton tweet? By the way, Twitter was hacked yesterday, which is pretty awesome.
I think we called that. I think I called it a coup d'etat potentially, and that's exactly what went
possibly
down.
Crazy.
Has anyone seen the bumper stickers, by the way? Could you pull that down 1 second? Has anyone seen the bumper stickers of the people that drive the Teslas and the Cybertrucks now that are like, I bought this before Elon Musk went crazy? It's like, nah, man, I don't think that's going to save you from the spray painting and stuff. I think you might have to go with something a little more, like that's a patch on a dam that has exploded, Mm-hmm. Anyway,
lipstick
Leviton,
on
please.
A pig, as they'd say.
Lipstick on a pig. I actually don't think that's what lipstick on a pig means, but
I think it is. Isn't like a pig is considered sort of dirty or shameful, although they're very clean animals. But then like you put a little bit of makeup on it, and we're
lipstick.
Looking at it
I think the ultimate lipstick on a pig example in a sports context was Super Bowl 59. What the Chiefs did in the second half to make that look like not the most hideous blowout that we've seen in many years in the Super Bowl. Anyway, the Leviton tweet. Let's see. Who's left as we record right now? Stephon Diggs, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Deontay Johnson, Evan Ingram. That's like your top 5 remaining dudes. And then you have these figures: Evan Ingram, J.K. Dobbins, Rico Dowdle, Keenan Allen, Nick Chubb. Look at that, Ceci. That just makes me sad.
It's depressing.
Amari Cooper, Khalil Herbert, DeAndre Hopkins, Juwan Johnson,
Elijah Moore.
Please. Are we still
Good God.
trying to fly the Elijah Moore flag in 2025?
Is that his order?
I think that would be his order, Adam, of established runs order. Yes, of what's left. Do you disagree with it? It seems about right to me.
No, I think Adam. I mean, our old friend Evan Silva and Adam kick some serious behind over there. So I'm not critiquing the order. I just I saw J.K. Dobbins.
Gretchen,
I think it's 6.
stop trying to make
J.K.
fetch
Dobbins
happen.
is someone.
It's not going to happen.
Okay. I would take J.K. Dobbins over some of those other
Yes,
individuals.
Justin. Well,
That was late, but reference to Elijah Moore. Stop trying to make it happen.
that was so late, Justin.
Well, I didn't have it
You're
as a
like,
drop.
"Let's
I
wait till
literally had
Marc
to
talks, then
search
we'll
it
drop
on
a
YouTube to find it.
It's almost like you have to wait and hope Elijah Moore comes up again. It's like one of those situations with the drop at that point.
Yeah, but I don't like doing
tough
that. I like interrupting Marc with the drops. So.
Yeah,
Sorry.
well, that,
Justin.
I support that as well. We love our producer, the Gravedigger, who cannot dunk, but says he can.
Lies.
And while we're here, let's pull up the Schefter tweet. The QB deal so far. So Darnold to the Seahawks, 3 for 100.5. I saw some pushback on that, by the way. I'll hold that thought. Justin Fields, 2 for 40 with the Jets. Daniel Jones. Oh, that happened today. Daniel Jones chooses the Colts, which was a great decision. Mm-hmm. And we'll get into that. 1 year for 14. Jimmy Garoppolo, 1 for 4. Zach Wilson to the Dolphins, 1 for 6 guaranteed for Zach Wilson. I read something interesting about Zach Wilson. We'll get to that in a second, too. Josh Dobbs, 2 for 8 with the Pats. Jarrett Stidham, 2 for 12 with the Broncos. Nick Mullins, good for you, son. 2 for 6.5. How does Nick Mullins get 2 for 6.5? And Zach Wilson, one of the big draft busts of this decade, 1 for 6. I'll tell you why. I saw a report out there that I believe it was Samini, but I'll double check on this because I want to give the person the credit. That Zach Wilson, who, memorably lost the fight for the second string job in Denver 1 week into training camp, right? Finished as the third stringer in Denver last year behind Bo Nix. That despite that, and despite obviously the draft pedigree and the failures with the Jets, his throwing portion of pregame warmups became must-see TV for people at the games, including scouts, who would watch his warmups and marvel at his arm strength and his ability. And to your point, I know, Conor, you're nodding your head because you're in the Wilson hive. We'll have to come up with a better name than that. But that will explain why he got 6 guaranteed, because the reason Denver didn't cut him when he didn't win the backup job is they knew he wouldn't clear waivers because he showed some things. He's been showing things his whole career, and he's been apparently doing it to the point where people are watching him in his warm-ups. It seems crazy to me, but you know what? I'm a Jets fan, so it's hard for me to really focus on these things.
I mean, the problem with Zach was always that he erred towards those throws. I mean, you know that, Dan, right? Like, he had to win games almost in a way that Johnny Manziel did, where it was he put himself in a situation where he would need those kind of throws to succeed instead of just playing in rhythm. But it's hard, right? You don't want to throw away arm talent, but there's a baseball analogy there where it's like Joey Gallo or any of these guys that can smash like 400-foot home runs, but you strike out every – you're batting like 195, and at some point it just becomes too much of a hassle to have you on the roster. I think this is his last chance if Mike McDaniel can turn him around. But of any coach out there, I do think that Mike McDaniel is probably the guy who could do it.
Yeah, well, you mentioned that. Yes, I mean, it wasn't Zach Wilson was the classic like combine/pro day dazzling people, but then you've got actual defenders on the field, pressure. You've got to read defenses. Bullets are flying. Zach Wilson turns into Donna Wilson.
And it's and it's you saying, why are you guys even wasting your time talking about this guy? He's the backup to Tua Tagovailoa.
Right.
He's going to play 6 to 15 games next year.
Right.
Trust us on that. So the Dolphins, and maybe Mike McDaniel's job could ride on fixing Zach Wilson. The one thing I'll say is Tua is on the short list of the most accurate quarterbacks in the league, right? Whereas the biggest problem that drove you crazy with Wilson, or one of the biggest problems, was he couldn't make the layups. He couldn't just hit guys that were open in the flat or just over them. And it was just like, man, if you can't do that, we can't have you around here, even if you can throw off platform 80 yards. Daniel Jones to the Colts, 1 year, $14 million. Brilliant Brilliant decision by Jones. Where did it come down? It came down to the Colts or who's the other team?
The Vikings.
The Vikings wanted him back, yeah.
And I get it, and we could talk about the Vikings QB situation, which still has my eyebrow up a little bit about what they're looking to do to pair him with J.J. McCarthy, pair somebody potentially. But Jones, I think, Mark, what I'm saying is not breaking news here. The Colts very clearly are on the fence about Anthony Richardson, and there's a chance that Daniel Jones is a QB1 in this league by October 1st. And if he then thrives in Shane Steichen's offense, he's looking at Sam Darnold over there in Seattle, who just got $100.5 million, and saying, man, that could be my arc here. I think it's a perfect landing spot, and I like it a lot for Jones.
Yep. I mean, I think we mentioned yesterday that this would be the clear landing spot, and I think there's an open competition here. The Pellraiser mentioned that they're going to compete, and I think that's at least what I like about that. Like, eyes open, Colts. Don't just eyes open. And I think Daniel Jones is the kind of guy, because of his size, his scampering ability, his athleticism in general, that's he's going to keep luring coaches toward him. And there's reasons, because you can see it for 2 quarters at a time. He will dazzle you. And I think the combination of him and Shane Steichen is, if anything, just a little bit of a notch below him and Kevin O'Connell. You went to another really good quarterback coach who is going to do you service versus a defensive head coach or something where you're just thrown to the wolves. So I think it's of the pairings, it's the best place he could have gone.
It's still, I would say, I mean, I've probably seen whatever in my time, 30, 40 quarterbacks practice, and warm up and see them throw in person. And next to Aaron Rodgers, Daniel Jones, if he uncorks a deep ball and it's on the money and it's tight, it's one of the best looking footballs I've ever seen. And sometimes guys are just, new coaches who haven't experienced that, and then they stand next to him for the first time. It's really easy to get drunk on that. But I'll mention this about Jones quickly. Imagine if he succeeds in Indianapolis, and in back-to-back years for Joe Shane, you let Saquon Barkley go and he wins the Super Bowl, and then you let Daniel Jones go and he wins the starting job in Indianapolis. And this is the first time that the Giants have hired an outside general manager since the 1970s. That thing is going to get locked up so fast if Daniel Jones ends up succeeding, and watch them just revert back to the way that they've always done things, because, man, what an optical nightmare that would be.
Get Ernie Accorsi back in there.
Ian Hartitz on Twitter. Lowest passer rating in the NFL over the past 2 seasons. Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson now battling it out for QB1. And yeah, you can not to overly praise the Colts or overly hype up Daniel Jones. He's been injury plagued and ineffective for much of his career. And that's fair to point out. And it's also fair to wonder that with the injuries that he's had, the athleticism might not be there anymore, whether it's arm strength or ability to move like he once did. But I think it's worth a flyer for a team that obviously is, feeling it a little bit in terms of pressure to find an answer at quarterback. Here is on NFL Network, Mike Garafolo reporting about the New York Giants, speaking of the Giants, and again, just when it looked like it was a done deal and Aaron Rodgers is going to Pittsburgh, here is a prominent national reporter connecting Rodgers to the Giants once more.
With Aaron Rodgers, Giants have had great conversations with Aaron Rodgers, from my understanding, and part of it is that we think that you and Malik Neighbors are really going to vibe. And this is a guy that's got incredible football IQ. We moved him around as a rookie. We played him everywhere. He soaks it all up. He's great during the week. He's great on Sundays. We know you ask a lot of your wide receivers, and this is a guy that can handle it and will probably thrive, and the kind of guy that helps you thrive as well.
Okay. The vibes would be good. First of all, bullshit. By the way, I love Mike G. So this is not a shot at Mike G.
Yes,
Mike G
not on Mike G.
But do not tell me that Aaron Rodgers and anybody are going to vibe. And if only a wide receiver has the right work habits and can get on the level of Aaron Rodgers as a competitor or whatever. Miss me with all that, because who's a great player and a hard worker and a great competitor? Garrett Wilson, and every bit as young and promising a wide receiver as Malik Neighbors. And Garrett Wilson couldn't wait for Aaron Rodgers to get the hell out of his life, okay? And now we're in a different place in Aaron Rodgers' career. He doesn't have the juice he had with the Jets, nor should any quarterback, but that's a Jets problem. He's not going to be able to bring Devontae Adams with him to poison the relationship with anybody else on the roster because Devontae signed with the Rams, of course. But I would just say buyer beware if you're selling it as Malik Neighbors is this like great potential superstar wide receiver, and if only he can get on Aaron's level. No, all that stuff, not for me. Not for me at all.
Conor, who's selling that to Rodgers? Is that just Shane?
I mean, it's Shane and it's stable, but at this point, how sad that that's really it. I mean, that's kind of, I mean, you've kind of showed up to a war with a pea shooter at this point, because look at everything that Pittsburgh has to offer, and you really don't have to strain your neck to think about it. You know, we have a pretty good offensive line that's ascending, that's getting better, and is already better than the Giants' offensive line. We just signed DK Metcalf, who I think I said yesterday, I think is going to age phenomenally on that contract. I just think he's got the right body size and the body type. And you can airmail yourself into the playoffs. Now, are you going to be successful? Maybe, maybe not. But this is a veteran team. You don't have to worry about all the leadership. You don't have to worry about the attention being on you. You can just show up and play football, and Cam Hayward kind of takes care of the rest of it. There's so many more kind of items in weighing in their favor, whereas the Giants just like, okay, maybe Malik Neighbors. I mean, that's not going to work for Aaron Rodgers.
Will the coaching staff and front office, be there by New Year's? Like, I mean, I think Aaron Rodgers needs if he's going to do this final chapter, consistency, and that's what the Steelers can sell you without even having to say a word.
Yeah, Steelers, just get it done. It makes more sense.
It done.
I mean, what's your plan?
Show?
What's your
How
plan
about
B
get
at
it
this
done
point?
during
Russell
this live
Wilson?
stream?
I saw some pushback online that, well, Russell Wilson to me is the most obvious Giants quarterback who's ever lived. I tweeted about this like 2 weeks ago. Like, this is Russ. Can't you just picture him in the Giants uniform, giving the press conferences, talking about how amazing it is to be the quarterback of this proud franchise, and then he's mediocre or below for 3 months or whatever. Like that's how I see the Giants, and I think it is actually, I say that, but I also think it's probably the most prudent path for the New York Giants, which is get a guy like a Russell Wilson, draft a quarterback, and try to develop and maybe replace Wilson. But I don't know if they have that, as we talked about, and it's one of the 10 commandments of Heed, free agency. I think they have the brain trust is under so much pressure, the GM and coach, to field a winner and get 7 or 8 wins this year, that they're probably pushing hard to get Rodgers in the building, even if that's not a long-term solution for them.
Or are the Giants, not unlike some other teams, telling us we're not buying these top 2 quarterbacks in the draft, and we understand that that's not going to save the day, and we're going to go get an aging Russell Wilson over one of those 2 guys.
What would Russell say, by the way? Because I actually spent like half an hour thinking about this, and I think I have the solution, because it was always go Hawks, or it was Broncos country, let's ride. And then I don't know what he did in Pittsburgh, but it could be.
He didn't. I think it was even asked that he was trying to tone it down a little bit and not make it, the branding was down in Pittsburgh.
What do you think about Giants Nation be tall? Or stand tall, like Giants Nation, stand tall.
I think Russ is probably a little self-conscious about his height. Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah,
let's go. Let's ride, baby. Ooh.
Hey, are you playing on Underdog yet? There's so many ways to get in on the action, whether it's higher, lower pick'em entries, daily drafts, or season-long tournaments. So don't miss out. Just scan the QR code on your screen to download and play on the Underdog app, or if you're not watching on YouTube, sign up with the code HTC, and you can receive up to $1,000 in bonus credits when you deposit. Make the most of your sports fandom by playing along on Underdog for our U.S. audience and only. And by the way, did you know that Underdog isn't just higher, lower pick'em entries? They also have streaks. You can enter for as little as $1, get a nice streak going, and win as much as 1,000 times your entry. Or if you have a nice streak and you don't want to risk it anymore, you can cash your streak out anytime. Check out Streaks by scanning the QR code on your screen to download the Underdog app, or sign up with the code HTC and receive up to $1,000 in bonus credits. Once more, for our U.S. audience only. By the way, we're hearing Charles Robinson, veteran reporter.
Dirty 30.
That Russell Wilson's market beyond the Giants is considered, quote, flat. ESPN's Dan Graziano indicated on Get Up this AM. Is that that's the ESPN show? Yeah, like Get Up, cold pizza.
Cold pizza was good.
Yeah, I liked cold pizza. I've watched Get Up a number of times. I thought is that
in 2004, like February of 2004, I was on a beach in Miami with my buddies, in a deep emotional valley after the end of my college relationship, and just looking at the world in a darkly cynical way at that time in my life, and came up to us on this beach, this like camera crew, like me and my buddies, and it was an ESPN crew, and they were shooting, I guess, some type of B-roll for the launch of Cold Pizza, their new morning show. And they're like, "Hey, what do you think of the name Cold Pizza?" And I think they thought because we were like young 20-somethings, we'd be like, "Cool name, I love pizza. Hold the anchovies." But in reality, in this dark place in my life, I just like looked dead in the camera and said, "I hate the name." But I hated everything at that time. And the show failed. And they had to rebrand. Yes.
You broke up with a woman.
Let's make it clear. She broke up with me. Yes.
Okay, but where was she at this time? Like, was she off? Like, was it the kind of thing where she is like, "I found my freedom again," or like, was she also, you mourn a little bit, even if you're the breaker upper, you'd still be a little bit morose. Or why
are you asking me, the woman who broke up with me, what she was doing after she left me? I don't know. Probably moving on with her life while I
only
was
followed her for like 3 or 4 weeks afterwards.
I do remember, and I think everyone has gone through these at least once in their life, and it's probably good for you to really get your heart stomped on.
Oh, yeah.
At some point. I remember that same weekend in Miami Beach, being in the middle of this like absurd nightclub, with all these like structures everywhere. It was almost like a Greek theme, or like, what would it be? Like, not Greek. It was almost like Stonehenge. It was just stupid looking, right? And the music was blaring, and I like find a quiet area of the club to call my ex-girlfriend, and it's just like, what are we doing, buddy?
Oof. But you have to go make those. I wouldn't really trust.
What a move.
Like anyone that tries to write a book or anything, if you've not been through all of this, and like, you've got to be the guy that does that desperate, ridiculous thing in front of your friends, like at a nightclub that's shaped like, I don't know, the Stonehenge thing is optional, but like, but yes, absolutely.
Dirty 30. More like dirty 20s. It's an interesting time in your life.
Dirty 30.
Anyway, ESPN's Dan Graziano indicated on Get Up, which was once Cold Pizza many years ago, that Aaron Rodgers could be seeking a 2-year deal. There is perception out there that he wants to play 2 or more years. And that's the last thing we're going to say about Aaron Rodgers for now. Let's see. What else happened? This is what's happened since we've been with you last. The Chargers. Marc, I know you're high on the Chargers. I think you said I'm a little bit like, eh. Chargers signed running back Najee Harris.
I love
1-year
this.
deal up to $9.25 million. I mean, tell me why you love it, because this sounds like the Chargers are about to get more boring. It's like, from the team that brought you 4.2 yards per rush, we bring you 3.8 yards per rush. Go ahead.
Like, we're in a post J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards world here, and I would say this. I like it for Najee Harris, of all the landing spots. Like, if you want to be a running back that has a chance to get a ton of carries, I'm not saying he's clearly the lead, but looking at who they have right now, I think he's sort of their dude at the moment. I could see them drafting someone as well. Jim Harbaugh with any running back, I like it for the running back. So of all the places he could have gone, good job.
From a human angle, okay, sure.
Yeah, 2 things. He's played 17 games every single year of his career. He hasn't missed a snap. And we saw how electric they were. Not electric's the wrong word. We saw how efficient they were with J.K. Dobbins until he got hurt last year. And the other thing that I'll just mention, Justin Herbert's had his best seasons with an elite check down running back. And we forget that Najee Harris caught 75 passes in his first year in the NFL. And then after that, just sort of fizzled out because Ben Roethlisberger and then Kenny Pickett and all that kind of stuff. But I think he could be a real factor for this team. And he could take a beating. He could take a beating.
I don't disagree. He's a Harbaugh type. I think Harbaugh had long been a fan of him. So I think maybe I'm just like cold pizza on Miami Beach, Dan, right now.
But that's okay, Dan. But that's okay.
But I think there's a part of me that just like, I'm still a little bit like, man, I wish Justin Herbert could have fun out there. but he's going to be shackled in this offense now with Jim Harbaugh after being coached poorly previous to that. But people are also sick about hearing people that cover football talking about, oh, man, if Justin Herbert only gets a chance. He's like 37 years old now. Hang on, my heater just came on.
Live TV, folks. What can you do?
Justin carried us through that bridge over troubled water.
Vikings signed guard Will Freeze, 5 years, $88 million. Also signed defensive tackle Jonathan Allen, 3 years, $60 million. They're closing in on defensive tackle Javon Hargrave. They've also re-signed cornerback Byron Murphy Jr. According to Burt Breer, the Vikings beat out the Colts, Pats, Giants, Seahawks, and Cards to get. Am I saying that right? Freeze or Fries? I don't know.
I think it's Fry, actually.
Okay.
But I only think that because everyone's making like, give me a bag of fries joke, like
hilarious.
on Twitter.
Well, that would suggest a link between the pronunciations, yes.
He was the top guard on the market, though. That's Vikings making moves.
So the Vikings have been very active.
Which, by the way,
yes.
I mean, to put a button on our point with Sam Darnold yesterday,
yes.
Dan, we're blaming Sam Darnold for this meltdown. And what is the only thing the Vikings have done this offseason is try to fortify the offensive line that got the absolute shit kicked out of them and made Sam Darnold look bad over the last 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah,
So,
I saw some criticism towards primarily Conor, but the group and overall about Sam Darnold and being too optimistic and too cheery about his landing spot in Seattle. And it's just like, listen, we're not saying Sam Darnold is Joe Montana. We're just saying that I believe and we believe that the way that season ended was not just on Sam Darnold, and the sample size overall of the season was tremendous. And it shouldn't be surprising that a functional front office like the one in Seattle would look at him and see him as a potential upgrade in the short and long term over Geno Smith, who is very much a, right side of the Dalton line, but not necessarily an elite quarterback. And now you're going to get younger and cheaper at the position. And there's a chance that he replicates his success or comes close to it in Seattle. It was a good move, and Sam deserves it after going on a nomadic journey from New York to Carolina, to San Francisco, to Minnesota, and now he got the bag, and I'm proud of him, and I'm happy for him. And I'm not in Miami Beach anymore. Danny's on the West Coast here in Los Angeles, the Pacific, a mile and a half away, and I see blue skies and crashing waves and golden sands for Sam Darnold. I choose to believe that. Okay? And I'm happy, and I'm in love, and I'm married, and that's all I have to say.
Yeah, and so now you're like
And
a
I
big
don't miss her
proponent
at
of
all.
Cold Pizza, the show. You're back on
Come
board.
back.
You told the producers. The idea that a nomad, that he's nomadic, because like a nomad typically is like in a stagecoach or some sort of like low rent vehicle with a bunch of stuff in the back, but he's like a multi-millionaire. So like the nomad's like he took a first class flight across the country to get to point B.
Absolutely. Jay Tweeter adds, beehives are nomadic because they need to pollinate. And that's good. And he certainly has pollinated across America in the first 5 or 6 years of his career. But hopefully he's got a long-term home with Seattle. Let's see who else has been active. But that to Conor's point, yes, the Vikings know what ruined their season. And it was, yes, quarterback struggled in the last 2 games, but the offensive line didn't hold up. And schematically, they learned a hard lesson that you have to be able to adapt quickly when a team figures you out or a league figures you out. And the Vikings did not figure it out in time. Also active, we mentioned the Giants. We've talked about the Giants. Can we fly that up, what they've done? We added 15 minutes to Dirty 30. It's now a filthy 45.
Can we get Frags to voice that?
We could if we ask nicely. All right, let's see what the
Dirty
Giants
30.
have done so far. They've been very busy. Javon Holland, the safety, Paulson Adebo, the cornerback, defensive end Chauncey Golston, defensive tackle Roy Robertson-Harris, offensive tackle James Hudson, linebacker Chris Board. These are not household names, but they are added to a roster that needs help. And then on the flip side, in the NFC East, the Eagles have lost a lot. Here's what the Eagles have lost on defense in the last 48 hours. Josh Sweat to Arizona, Milton Williams, New England, Isaiah Rodgers, Minnesota, Darius Slay, no longer with the team. James Bradbury, expected to be cut. C.J. Gardner-Johnson traded to Houston. That was another move. The Texans, after their controversial decision to trade their left tackle, they did add Gardner-Johnson to their secondary. So
it's a huge chunk of the back end of your defense. It kind of shows you how well built the Eagles are, because like the people they lose those were all key contributors, and like they'll find a way to keep it going. But like I'm more impressed with that group than the Giants group outside of Javon Holland.
The thing too about Philly is I remember talking to Vic Fangio at the Super Bowl, and he saw 6 plays of Zach Bond playing what he termed to be off-ball linebacker before he identified him as a potential starting off-ball linebacker. Like Zach Bond played 6 plays on tape, and then Vic Fangio's like, okay, I can make you an off-ball linebacker. So a lot of this is like, wow, they're losing so many guys, but you have a staff that can identify talent on a different level right now. I mean, all these scrubs at the bottom level of free agency were like, who the hell is that guy? He's probably the Eagles' starting defensive end next year, and we just haven't seen him play yet, you know?
very fair.
Fangio.
Justin, can we get a little 8 o'clock delight and just spin us through the rest of the transactions since yesterday?
All right. Since yesterday, picking up where you just left off, the Texans, yes, traded for C.J. Gardner-Johnson and also signed guard Laken Tomlinson after trading away Kenyon Green. The Saints re-signed edge Chase Young, 3 years, $51 million for a guy who was on a prove-it deal. Jets add safety Andre Sisco. The Bills, this was yesterday, signed defensive
Sauce
tackle
loved that
Michael.
deal.
Yes.
Sauce
he
tweeted about it. The front office doing work. Keep my superstars happy. Get out of the way, Woody.
All right. Bills signed defensive tackle Michael Hoyt, who was a very interesting guy who transitioned from defensive tackle to linebacker with the Rams. Cardinals signed linebacker Akeem Davis-Gaither. 49ers signed defensive tackle Kevin Givens. They placed a second-round tender on running back Jordan Mason, and they are planning to release 9-time Pro Bowl fullback Kyle Juszczyk.
Ego! White on the market.
That's sad.
The Bengals are re-signing
like me in 2004. White on the market.
Bengals
Sad
are
white available.
Signing edge Hookem, Joseph Osai, and they've also re-signed cornerback Marco Wilson. The Dolphins add O-line James Daniels, formerly with the Bears. They also signed cornerback Ifitu Melifonwu, whose older brother was a famous draft bust. And they re-signed defensive back Elijah Campbell. Almost there. Raiders signed linebacker Landon Roberts. Falcons signed linebacker Divine Diablo. Also, the Raiders added safety Lonnie Johnson. Cowboys have made a couple moves, signing offensive lineman Rob Jones and also signing Solomon Thomas.
You stop talking.
2 more. Chiefs signed Christian Fulton, and the Panthers are going to release Pro Bowl running back Miles Sanders.
Okay. Miles Sanders, man. Who's going to get sucked in by the Sanders hype next? Good job, Justin. All right, any closing thoughts on today's show?
Speaking of Justin, I was just informed this yesterday, which is sort of stunning, and it has a little less to do with football. But I thought that Jokic from the Nuggets and Doncic from the Mavericks were the same person. And
football is completely different than basketball.
Really?
And so, like, I'm so unplugged on basketball. My neighbor really follows it, and so we were talking, and I was like, hold on a second. And so now I'm fully coming to understand how bad the trade was, and so I'm sorry. Like, when it happened, I just was like, who gives a shit? But I was like, oh, wow, this is really bad. I didn't know there were 2 of those guys.
And
so.
Connor shared that when we had Jason Zumwalt, do the Luka impression during our Super Bowl week, that Connor just sort of quietly mystified, went along with the whole schedule. But you know what I think? I think if you're a super casual or like not, if you just kind of pick up sports news like in the airwaves and you're not following the NBA, there are a bunch of citizens out there faced with the same dilemma that Connor was faced with, and they feel heard now. So,
what are you in law enforcement? Bunch of citizens out there.
It's Jokic, by the way,
uneducated.
Not Jokic.
Okay, well then why does it start with a J, Justin?
He's from Serbia.
Thanks, strong.
Also, you know what? I think to Conor's point, they call him the Joker too. They don't call him the Yoker.
Right.
That's fair.
That is a strong.
I mean, he's
point
playing
against
here.
Justin.
We're not playing in Serbia, so.
What is this? I dream in red? Save it for the newsletter. Holy God.
Go look at
Drive
that
your
and see if
Cybertruck somewhere else, or
Has anyone even cracked that newsletter to see how wrong we are about this analysis? But
Jokic went 30-20-20 the other night. Unbelievable.
That's the one on the Lakers or the one on the, not the Lakers?
That's the nugget.
I don't know.
All right. Of the players that we mentioned earlier that are still out there, does anybody have a guy that they really think is going to – because there's always guys that hang out that end up becoming big-time difference makers in free agency. And let's face it, I know it's Tuesday morning on the West Coast, but it's already late in the game right now in terms of being a figure who's really wanted in this realm. So you're going to get any of these guys at this point on a discount. Who stands out to you that's left?
are we at the point where, because the wide receiver group is older and a little bit kind of like we're over these guys, that like Stephon Diggs can't help anyone? Like, I guess I'm not like jazzed up about anyone left, but it's like Stephon Diggs could help a team, no doubt about it. The idea that he's like, we're marching him into a retirement facility is a little bit beyond the pale.
This is an unsexy answer, but I would say that there are so many teams now running the Kyle Shanahan offense that the fact that Kyle Juszczyk is now available, and the reason that he's valuable is because he can play fullback and tight end. And so what that does is it keeps opposing defenses in base defense. They can't bring their nickel onto the field. And so if you're like Mike McDaniel, or like, that's why Mike McDaniel went out and got a fullback. That was one of the first things he did. So there's like 10 of those offenses. I bet he finds a market very quickly, and he's probably very helpful because there's no fullbacks out there. There's not a lot of those guys that are available. So
I'm kind of into Evan Ingram. I know that in Jacksonville, he wasn't much of a playmaker, but I just wonder if that's a function of some of the offensive issues they've had there and the quarterback injuries the last couple of years. I would be open to taking a flyer on Ingram. I think J.K. Dobbins, I'd welcome him into my running back room as a depth piece or rotational. And I'll say it, Ceci, I know there's a decent chance that Nick Chubb is past the point of no return in terms of being an elite player, but given another full year from that hideous knee injury, I would kick the tires on a incentive-laden deal and put him in a shared backfield and see if he can give you something. And, because there is obviously he's a beautiful football player that had his career upended by injuries. I'd love to be the team that gives him a shot at a redemption arc.
Yeah, I think it's also, and we don't know what this means as just watching, but he's been called by multiple people inside the building like the best teammate in the entire. He's the heart and soul of the Cleveland Browns. So it will hurt to see him somewhere else, but like I would never doubt him physically down the road, because here's a guy that suddenly you get a video of him, benching like 2,060 pounds. So like, yes, I love that. I don't know what team it would be, and I don't know if it's right away, but like, what if mid-season he's back in form and he starts hammering people? That would be, yes, I love him. He was my favorite football player before all the wreckage unfolded here.
True. Earth Fat. That is the name. Earth Fat in the chat asks, is Marc any closer to rearing 24 children? Marc, on yesterday's show, if you missed yesterday's show, speaking of pollination, this was like it wasn't like I want to have a big family and I want to be a loving dad. He just wanted to, insert and leave as many locations as possible, and that's his goal. So how are we doing on that? Any progress?
Day by day operation, but I don't know why more people aren't into this concept of this. This is old, ancient Earth practice, and then it's like, oh, I'll have 1.5 children and have a fence. Like, no, like you go out and you just
fence.
Well, whatever it is, just like you go out and you just like let's think about the Earth differently. Like that would be my thought. It is complex. It's a complex concept, depending who's involved.
I heard that the humans use idioms such as white picket fence to discuss family security and settling down.
I do think it's nice if you had a fence around your home.
The humans prefer comfort as they age. I am an outlier. All right, great stuff. 2 minutes left in this, what did we say, filthy 45. We will be back, barring some crazy breaking news. The last time you hear from us today, Tuesday, is right now. But we'll be back Wednesday, which is technically the start of the league new year. We're going to go a little bit later. We're going to do 3 Eastern, noon Pacific. Actually, we might have to talk about that, Mark, because we have our friends, Mike and Jordan, scheduled to join us. So,
right.
TBA on the time.
Yeah.
We'll let you know, but we will be live streaming again. Keep an eye out on social, and we'll let you know when that's going to happen. Any final thoughts, gentlemen?
Mark?
I don't know. I really do. I think one of the biggest mysteries about this process is, I'm not even being flippant here, is like, will we do another show today? Because if the Rodgers things drop, that's sort of the final little piece of the puzzle. That would be the thing that I think would trigger another episode. So that's the mystery that I'm pondering between now and
Or maybe it won't.
Today.
Maybe it won't,
And there's a bridge to it. There's a bridge to the draft too, where it's develop your quarterbacks, people. We're waiting for goddamn Aaron Rodgers to decide between 2 teams at 42, for this to be a feasible solution. There's nobody in the draft right now that we love. There's nobody in the pipeline. Let's go. We got a development issue here.
We have reached the portion of the free agency week where the smart teams make moves that will make their roster better and win games in January. So keep an eye out now. All the big spenders, that's all fun. You could call the Pats or the Commanders or who has a ton of money winners. But the real smart teams, check out the 10 Commandments and check us out tomorrow. And remember, as always, heed the call.